It could turn metal to gold, grant immortality, and it vanished, not with a bang, but into a bank vault. In the very first Harry Potter book, we are introduced to the Philosopher's Stone, a mythical object said to produce the elixir of life and limitless wealth. But what the story never tells us is how such a relic came into the possession of Albus Dumbledore, or why he entrusted it to goblins. More than a tool, the Philosopher's Stone represents a question, a temptation, a secret past between only a few of the greatest magical minds to ever live. And at the center of that secret stood two men, Nicolas Flamel, the stone's legendary creator, and Albus Dumbledore, its final guardian. Today, we trace the untold journey of the Philosopher's Stone, from its alchemical birth through centuries of concealment to its quiet disappearance inside the vaults of Gringotts. A tale of ancient magic, hidden friendships, and the most dangerous gift wizard kind has ever known. Welcome to the Forgotten Mage. Long before the magical world had schools or ministries, there was alchemy, one of the oldest branches of magical and non-magical science alike. Rooted in ancient Egypt, Greece, and Islamic traditions, alchemy sought the transformation of matter and, symbolically, the transformation of the soul. In the wizarding world, alchemy wasn't just metaphoric, it was practical. The elusive goal was always the Philosopher's Stone, which could perform two miracles: turn base metals into pure gold, produce the elixir of life, granting immortality. But few understand that the creation of the stone was never meant to be a shortcut to wealth or eternal life. In alchemical thought, the stone represented perfection of the spirit, the completed self. It was not made through spells, but through enlightenment. Many tried to create it, most failed. Only one succeeded. Nicolas Flamel was born in Paris in 1327, a scribe by profession, an alchemist by obsession. His legend exists in both magical and Muggle history, and in the wizarding world, he's the only known creator of the Philosopher's Stone. But how did he do it? Records are scarce. Most believe Flamel studied ancient alchemical texts, including the lost Emerald Tablet and writings from Persian and Arabic scholars. But his success came not just from knowledge, but from restraint. He created the stone, and yet he never used it to build an empire. He lived quietly with his wife, Perenelle, for over 6 centuries. Producing only enough gold and elixir for their needs, Flamel avoided both fame and fear. And it is precisely this balance between use and desire that allowed the stone to survive. In the shadows of time, Flamel guided magical scholars, protected dangerous lore, and lived a life most could only imagine. And then, sometime in the 19th century, he met a man who would change everything: Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore and Flamel's friendship is one of the most fascinating in magical history. Though separated by centuries in age, they were united by a shared fascination with alchemy, not just its power, but its purpose. Dumbledore was brilliant, but already wary of power. After his tragic fallout with Grindelwald that we went over in a previous video, he began to see magic not as a weapon or a tool, but as a mirror to the soul. Flamel recognized that. He entrusted Dumbledore with knowledge no one else had: they worked together on alchemical transmutations, magical ethics, and, crucially, the protection of the stone. One of my best friends, Flamel would later say, and the only person I ever trusted with the stone. This trust was not casually given. It was born of shared wisdom that some things are too powerful to be used and too dangerous to leave unguarded. By the late 20th century, a new threat emerged. Tom Riddle, better known as Voldemort, sought not just power, but immortality. And unlike Flamel or Dumbledore, he had no interest in balance. He wanted dominion over death. He had already begun creating Horcruxes, splitting his soul and binding it to objects. But even that wasn't enough. Voldemort craved a form of immortality that didn't demand constant killing or soul-rending, and so he turned his gaze toward the Philosopher's Stone. Dumbledore knew it was only a matter of time before Voldemort would search for it, and so he acted. He and Flamel made a decision to move the stone, hide it, protect it from the man who would twist its meaning into something monstrous. But where could one possibly place the most coveted magical object in the world? Dumbledore chose a place not ruled by wizards, not protected by enchantments, but one that operated on its own ancient rules. He chose Gringotts. Goblin-run and fiercely independent, Gringotts was perhaps the last institution in the wizarding world that Voldemort couldn't infiltrate. Goblins had no allegiance to wizards. They didn't fear Voldemort, and they certainly didn't revere him. Their only loyalty was to gold, secrecy, and their own complex magical traditions. Vault 713, a high-security chamber with no visible entrance, was selected to house the stone. It could only be opened by a goblin, and if anyone tried to force entry, they would be sucked into the vault and trapped for eternity. Some even whisper of goblin-forged enchantments guarding the vault. Magic, older and more alien than even Dumbledore's own, runes of inversion, blood bindings, anti-summoning wards, magic that no wand could undo. For a time, the stone was safe. But Voldemort, weakened, bodiless, desperate, was not far behind. On July 31st, the day Harry Potter turned 11, Hagrid retrieved the Philosopher's Stone under Dumbledore's orders. That same day, Vault 713 was broken into. It had already been emptied just hours before, but the message was clear. Voldemort was watching, testing, reaching out from the shadows. So Dumbledore took the next step. He moved the stone again, this time into Hogwarts itself, protected by enchantments from some of the most brilliant minds at the school. Flitwick, McGonagall, Sprout, Hagrid, Snape, the stone became the centerpiece of a dangerous puzzle, and whether by fate or intention, a boy who had once survived the killing curse would be the one to face it. Do you believe Dumbledore ever used the stone even once? Or did he fear its power too deeply to even touch it? Let us know in the comments. The Forgotten Mage reads every whispered theory you leave behind. After Harry prevented Voldemort from reclaiming the stone, Dumbledore and Flamel made one final decision. They have enough elixir to set their affairs in order, but they agree it is best if the stone is destroyed. Just like that, the most powerful object in magical history was gone, destroyed not in a duel, not in a fire, but by choice. Why? Because Flamel understood that even immortality must end. that the true danger of the stone was not that it could be stolen, but that someone good might one day use it for the wrong reasons. Because Dumbledore knew that as long as the stone existed, Voldemort, or someone worse, would come looking. And because both men had learned the hardest truth of all, that the greatest power lies in letting go. It's easy to forget that Dumbledore himself once longed for the very thing Voldemort craved. In his youth, he dreamed of conquest, immortality, changing the world. But after the death of his sister Ariana, Dumbledore spent his life trying to avoid power, not claim it. He turned down the post of Minister for Magic multiple times. He cloaked himself in eccentricity. But behind the twinkle in his eye was a constant battle against the part of him that still longed for the stone. It is entirely possible that Dumbledore never used it, that he couldn't, because he knew what it might awaken, and so he became its guardian instead, not its master. The goblins never spoke of Vault 713 again, but their involvement in hiding the stone reveals something deeper, something uncomfortable. Wizards had long treated goblins as lesser, yet when the time came to hide the most important magical object in the world, Dumbledore trusted them, not the Ministry. This wasn't just about security. It was about neutrality. Goblins were ancient. Their magic didn't rely on wands. Their vaults were older than the laws of the Wizengamot. Gringotts, in that moment, became more than a bank. It became the last sacred ground, untouched by politics, prophecy, or war. And perhaps in that sense, the goblins didn't just protect the stone. They protected the choice to destroy it. The Philosopher's Stone is often misunderstood as a magical object, but in true alchemical tradition, it's a symbol. It represents the transformation of the soul, the perfection of self through struggle. Gold was never the goal, it was a metaphor. The elixir of life wasn't about never dying, it was about living wisely and long enough to learn how to die. To Voldemort, the stone was a weapon. To Flamel, it was a mirror. To Dumbledore, it was a test. And to Harry, it was just something worth protecting. In the end, the stone revealed who each person truly was, and that, perhaps, was its greatest magic. Vault 713 is empty now. No goblin speaks of what it held. No elixir flows. No stone remains. But the legend of the Philosopher's Stone endures, not because it made gold or granted life, but because it asked one question: what would you become if you could live forever? And more importantly, what kind of wizard would you be if you chose not to? Thank you for unlocking the forgotten history of the Philosopher's Stone. If you crave more magical mysteries and deep wizarding lore, subscribe to The Forgotten Mage. And remember, some magic is real, if you know where to look.